Let's continue our discussion about brush properties. And for this matter, we should tell a scenario, make a scenario for ourselves to have a better understanding of the situation. Okay, for example, I'm going to use an alpha like this one. Okay, and spacing is on the 80. That's it. And the follow path is turn on. And now I can make this a stroke. Let's change the angle. Okay, so it should be reverse. And yeah, this is perfect. Okay, the scenario is I want to create a line on the surface between the hand and the body. Okay, so the first thing that comes up to our mind is, okay, come on and brush like this. Oh, it's not working, right? So the second solution that we can have is to paint here. We can change the direction of the alpha, as you can see, with the control and mouse left button and moving up and down the mouse. Okay, so this is the way that we can change the direction of the alpha. That's it. So let's paint. Okay, we are good to go. And yeah, it's not a perfect way to do that because as you can see, we have some leaking brushes and there is some area that we don't want in the brushing. Okay, so this is not a good solution to use UV like that. Okay, and we can improve this solution with turning on the back face calling feature. And as you can see, I can paint and there is no leaking on this UV island. Yeah, absolutely, there is some misleading brush here, but we can adjust that. It's not a big problem like before. But actually, it's not a good solution at all. Okay, so we need to change some other setting to achieve the result that we want. So we need to understand when we move the mouse on the surface, the software is going to align the brush on the surface. Okay, and we can change it. And we have at least 4 different alignments for the brush alignment on the surface in the Substance Painter. So the first one and default value for alignment is tangent wrap, and it's going to align the brush on the surface with tangent. So okay, let's turn off follow path so we can create this kind of stamping brush here. Okay, with follow path we need to create a path or create a complete stroke, and we cannot use single stamp brush. So I'm going to add, let's make it 0. I'm going to add a stamp brush, single brush here. Okay, that's okay because we are going to use tangent for this one. It's okay, but when we change it to camera, it's totally different. For example, if I set the camera like this and press left button on the mouse, as you can see, it's going to project this alpha from the angle of the camera and in the camera view and camera direction, and this is the result. So it's a good option when we want to project something on the model from the camera direction. Okay, so the tangent, it's not working like that. If I set the camera like that and press brush, and yeah, as you can see, everything is okay and it's aligned on the surface. But the issue when we use tangent is the closed surface. All the surface closed together they are making us difficulty in the process of painting. Okay, so we can solve this issue and improve the painting with changing alignment to UV. Okay, so when we change alignment to UV, it's not going to stamp from the surface and the tangent. It's going to project the alpha on the UV and use UV island as a source. For example, if we use tangent wrap in here, as you can see, we create this brush on the body, but we have something on the hand. So this is the nature of tangent wrap. Okay, it's going to read the surface, and we are going to stamp the brush. And as you can see, the brush region or brush cursor is a cross between body and hand. So it's going to stamp on both sides. Okay, so let's change it to UV, and I'm going to stamp the brush here. And as you can see, yeah, the perfect solution for us, because we have different UV island, as you can see, for hand and body. The painter, it's going to stamp our brush on the UV island of the body, and that's it, that's done. This is the tip, and this is the trick when we are going to use the alignment. Okay, so we are going to use alignment a lot when we want to set something, and the shape of the model and the form of the model is too hard to stamp the brush on that surface and get some clean result. We are going to change alignment to UV and use UV for the stamping the brush. Okay, so let's delete that. Let's go back. Let's talk about the size space. For the size space, we have three different options. The object and the texture is the same option, and they are going to work very similar together. And the viewport is completely different. So let's go for the object, and the size space is related to the size feature on the brush properties. So let's keep the size clean and readable. For example, the value of the size should be on 20 for this example. And I'm going to show you something. Okay, I'm going to paint the alpha on the surface with size 20 with this camera setting. And now I just zoom out and create another projection or another brush. So when we back, we can see the size it's the same. There is no difference in the size. So size space, when it's set on the object, the proportion or the scale of the brush, it's same when we are close or far from the object. Okay, and this is the same when we are in the texture mode of the size space. It's going to keep the scale at the same size when we zoom in or zoom out with UV size and scale. Okay, so it's the same when we using alignment in UV. It should be better to change the size space to texture. Okay, this is a suggestion that I can offer to you. And when we are using tangent wrap, we should keep size space on the object, not texture. Okay, and what about the viewport? So the story of the viewport is completely different. Let's delete them, and I'm going to paint this brush with the 20 in the size, and let's paint. Let's zoom back and just make another paint. And as you can see, it's not related to the object anymore, and it's related to the viewport and the camera. So when you change size space to viewport, your distance from object is very important, and its effect on the size of the brush and the alpha. Okay, and that's it. So it's enough for the brush setting, alpha, and material. And there is just a little option, very useful and very simple, which is called stencil. And we are going to use stencil a lot in many different projects. And it's so easy. Let's change the alpha to shape. Shape is the default alpha in the Substance Painter. And now we are going to use stencil. Okay, let's talk about the stencil. Stencil is a secondary mask that we can use and project that mask with the alpha from viewport point of view. So what does it mean? Let's load something in the stencil. For example, I just search drip, and with this drip, for example, I'm going to use this picture. And as you can see, now I have this image on the viewport in 2D and 3D view at the same time. And now I can paint in white area with my alpha. Okay, so let's paint and see what happened. Okay, so I'm going to control my paint with the secondary mask in stencil. As you can see, that's it. And we can change the camera and paint again. Yeah, like this. Okay. So this is the concept of the stencil. We have a secondary mask, and we are going to project the data through alpha inside the mask that we have in the viewport. So how we can control this stencil? We have a tiling control here. We can choose between horizontal tiling, vertical tiling, or H and V tiling. It's so similar to UV wrap in the fill layer. So if we choose horizontal tiling, we can see the tiling in horizontal, but now we couldn't see anything because it's fit on the viewport, and we need to change the scale of the stencil. How we can do that? With holding S, you are going to stencil transform mode, and you can use right click on the mouse for zoom in or zoom out. You can use the left key for rotation, and you can use the middle mouse button for panning this picture. And whenever you want to reset everything related to the transform, you just need to click reset in here. Okay, so let's zoom out, and now we can see the vertical tiling, the horizontal tiling, and H and V tiling. So this is the way that we can use the stencil inside Substance Painter. And what if we just change the alpha? Okay, I'm going to change the alpha to something like this and increase the spacing to something like 80. And as you can see, yeah, we can paint our brush with the alpha that we set, pass through the stencil. Okay, so this is the main logic. We are going to use stencil a lot when we want to create unique surface detail on the surface, and we can create our stencil and we can use them on the project very easy. We just need to create a black and white version of any image that we want, and we can bring it in Substance Painter and just use in a stencil. Okay, that's it. Okay, we are talking about the stencil, right? And it's just going to paint the material that we set in here with alpha and the mask in the stencil. So what happened if I change the base color to something like camo. So the default version, let's change to the shape, is like this. Okay, let's decrease the spacing to 10. The default version is like this. It's not good. And when we are using a stencil, it's like this, right? So it's not good for painting or projecting the base color, the texture inside the material. So how we can do that? For example, we have some textures and we want to project them on the surface. And it's not a way to use paintbrush in default mode with the alpha and stencil. And if we load in the material inside the brush, we're just brushing them top each other. So it's not a way. For this purpose, we need to change the brush mode from brush to projection. Okay, so in the projection, we have alpha and we don't have stencil. We have projection material. And the material, it's not related to the brush. It's related to the stencil and the projection. Okay, so what happened here? Let's remove the paint test. I'm going to create another paint layer. Let's call it projection. And in the projection mode, I have the same setting for the brush, for the alpha. And in here, I have the projection tiling mode, which I can choose the size of the projection. And I just need color right now. Let's add camo again. And as you can see, now I can project the base color data in a stencil mode with this alpha. So, like this. And boom. Now I can change the data, like height, like here. Let's decrease the height amount. And now, as you can see, we are projecting the data on the surface with the projection mode. So when we change the projection, we can paint again, like this. Okay. And we can do something like this. Okay. And boom. When we finished with the painting, we can go back to the brush mode and remove a stencil. And as you can see, we have this result. Okay, there's some feature that we can use that. Let's go to the display setting. And we have tool display here. You can decide what is the opacity value that you want for the stencil in projection mode, okay, or in brush mode with the stencil. In the display setting and tool display, you can use this slider to control the opacity. And when you are painting, okay, the stencil is going to be hide, and you can control that with this checkbox. So I can paint here and the stencil is over here. And when we check this box, when we're painting, there's nothing and we can continue our paint. So this is the way that you can control this stencil in the viewport with these two features. And that's enough for the stencil and projection. We are going to use them in the project. And let's talk about another feature that we have in the layers section or layers window. Okay, I can control the data in the layer with two different modes. First one is blending mode, and the second one is opacity slider. So we have separate blending mode and opacity slider for each layer and each channel. We can change channel. For example, we can go to the height, and we have the height channel for this layer, and the blending mode and the opacity is totally different. Okay, so I don't want to have any height in this layer. So let's decrease the opacity. Now you can see there is no height data inside the material. Okay, and it's not related to the other channel. And we have 100 in the base color, and we can change it. Okay, and what if we want exactly the same amount or same blending mode option for all channels? We just need to right click and use apply to all channel. And now if I click on apply to all channel, 64 value is set on the opacity for each channel for this layer. Okay, like that. So in this way we can control the opacity and the blending mode for each layer or each folder or each filter. We are going to talk about the filter and generator in future. And boom, we can control everything with this option in the layer. That's enough for the brush for now. And let's go to the next video. We are going to talk about the feature that we have in here, like symmetry and distance and etc.